The massive view screen aboard the UES Phoenix filled with swirling colors as the ship emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the Centauri system. Commander Elena Santos watched intently as the sensors began mapping the unusual energy signatures that had drawn Earth's attention 3 weeks ago. The experimental vessel represented humanity's greatest technological achievement, though that wasn't saying much compared to the advanced civilizations they'd recently discovered among the stars. Energy signature confirmed, Commander. Lieutenant Sarah Chen reported from her station, dark eyes fixed on the readouts. It matches the pattern we detected from Earth. But there's something else. She frowned, adjusting the scanning parameters. The signature is much stronger now, and it's not alone. Elena felt a familiar tension creep into her shoulders. After decades of searching for alien life, humanity's first contact 6 months ago with the Galactic Empire had seemed like a dream come true. The crystalline-shelled beings had arrived in ships that dwarfed anything Earth had built, bringing promises of peaceful cultural exchange and technological advancement. But something about their behavior had never sat right with Elena. Multiple signatures now, Commander, Chen continued, her voice tightening. They're everywhere. Dozens of them, maybe more, scattered throughout the system. The bridge crew fell silent as the implications sank in. The Galactic had claimed to be sending a small diplomatic delegation to the Centauri colonies. This was something else entirely. Show me, Elena ordered, rising from her command chair. The main display shifted to a tactical view, lighting up with dots representing energy signatures. Her jaw clenched as she recognized the pattern. A classic pincer formation, designed to cut off escape routes. Ma'am, Communications Officer James Rodriguez called out, I'm picking up encrypted transmissions between the signatures. The encryption matches known Galactic military frequencies. Elena nodded slowly, pieces falling into place. The Galactic's careful questions about Earth's defenses, their insistence on mapping human trade routes, their generous offers to upgrade Earth's detection systems with their own technology. They never wanted peace, she said quietly. They were gathering intelligence, preparing for invasion. The Phoenix's bridge crew exchanged grim looks. They'd all heard the stories of other civilizations that had encountered the Galactic. Stories that the Empire dismissed as propaganda from unenlightened species. But Elena had spent countless hours studying those accounts, noting the patterns. The Galactic offered friendship to developing civilizations, learned their weaknesses, then struck without warning, absorbing them into their empire through overwhelming force. Orders, Commander? Chen asked, her fingers hovering over her console. Elena allowed herself a small smile. The Galactic had made one critical mistake. They'd assumed humanity's technological inferiority meant they were naive. They hadn't realized that Earth's history of warfare and conflict had taught humans to always prepare for the worst, even in times of peace. Begin passive scanning of their fleet composition, she commanded. Record everything, but maintain our stealth systems, and send a coded burst transmission to Earth Command. Authorization code Santos Alpha 79. Message begins. Operation Cassandra confirmed. Phoenix in position. Requesting authorization to proceed with Protocol 0. As her crew carried out their orders with practiced efficiency, Elena studied the tactical display. The Galactic ships were positioning themselves with mathematical precision, no doubt confident in their superior technology and millennia of unopposed expansion. They had no way of knowing that the Phoenix wasn't just Earth's most advanced ship. It was a trap designed specifically for this moment. The ship's quantum core hummed almost imperceptibly beneath Elena's feet as she returned to her command chair. Most of the vessel's true capabilities remained dormant, hidden beneath layers of camouflaging systems that made the Phoenix appear to be little more than an oversized research vessel. The Galactic would detect only what humans wanted them to see, an isolated ship stumbling upon their invasion force, preparing to flee with a warning that would come too late. Incoming transmission from Earth Command, Rodriguez reported. Authorization granted. Protocol 0 is a go. Elena took a deep breath, feeling the weight of what they were about to attempt. Protocol Zero had never been tested in actual combat. The simulation showed it would work, but the risks were enormous. If they failed, Earth would lose its only real chance of surviving what was coming. "Send acknowledgement," she ordered. "Then begin warming up our primary systems. Slowly. Let's not tip our hand too soon." She turned to address her crew directly. "What we do here will determine the fate of Earth and every human colony. The Kraxan think they're hunting us. They're about to learn that sometimes the prey is actually the predator." The bridge crew straightened at their stations, ready for what was to come. They had trained for this moment, prepared for it in ways the Kraxan couldn't imagine. Humanity's apparent technological backwardness wasn't a weakness. It was a carefully crafted deception, designed to draw their enemies into a trap generations in the making. "Contact approaching, Commander," Chen reported. "Kraxan heavy cruiser, bearing 347 Mark II. They're charging weapons." Elena nodded calmly. "Right on schedule. Stand by. All stations. Let them make the first move. Everything depends on what happens next." The Kraxan cruiser's first shot passed harmlessly through the space where the Phoenix had been moments before. Elena watched with satisfaction as their enemy's targeting systems struggled to lock onto their position. The quantum displacement drive was performing exactly as designed, making the ship appear to be microseconds out of phase with normal spacetime. "They're broadcasting on all frequencies," Rodriguez reported, his hands moving across his console. "They're demanding our immediate surrender." A slight smile crossed his face. Rather forcefully, I might add. "Let them demand," Elena replied, studying the tactical display. More Kraxan ships were moving to surround them, their crystalline hulls gleaming in the starlight. "Dr. Wells, status of the quantum core." The ship's chief scientist looked up from her station, her gray eyes bright with anticipation. "Power levels optimal, Commander. The core is masking its signature perfectly. They're seeing exactly what we want them to see, a conventional fusion reactor struggling to maintain power." The Phoenix shuddered as another shot grazed their outer shields. The Kraxan were becoming frustrated with their inability to land a solid hit, their attacks growing more aggressive, but less coordinated. Everything was proceeding according to the scenarios Earth's strategists had mapped out years ago, when they first realized peaceful contact with an advanced civilization was unlikely. "Incoming transmission from the Kraxan flagship," Rodriguez announced. "They're patching through their fleet, Commander." Elena straightened in her chair. On screen, the view screen flickered to life, revealing the imposing figure of Fleet Commander Xarketh. Like all Kraxan, his crystalline exoskeleton caught and reflected light in mesmerizing patterns, a trait that had initially fascinated Earth's scientists. Now they understood it was just another form of natural armor, like so many predator species evolved. "Human vessel," Xarketh's translated voice resonated with artificial harmony. "Your resistance is both futile and unnecessary. The Kraxan Empire offers you one final opportunity to surrender and accept your place in our grand design. Continue this pointless display, and we will be forced to demonstrate the true extent of our power." Elena allowed herself a moment to appreciate the irony. The Kraxan's grand design had conquered 100 worlds through this same pattern of false diplomacy followed by overwhelming force. But they had never encountered a species that had spent its entire history preparing for war while praying for peace. "Fleet Commander," she responded, keeping her voice steady and allowing a touch of fear to creep in. "We are a research vessel. We pose no threat to your ships. Please, allow us to return to Earth. We can discuss this peacefully." Xarketh's crystalline features shifted in what Elena had learned was their equivalent of a dismissive smile. "Your time for discussions has ended. The Kraxan Empire has determined that humanity requires guidance. Your species' potential is evident, but your chaotic nature makes you dangerous. You will be integrated into the Empire, or you will be eliminated." Elena gave a subtle hand signal to Dr. Wells, who began the final power-up sequence for their true weapon systems. The quantum core's hum deepened almost imperceptibly as it prepared to reveal its full capabilities. "You're right about one thing, Commander Xarkath," Alina replied, dropping all pretense of fear from her voice. "Humanity's potential is evident, but you've badly miscalculated what that potential means." She cut the transmission before he could respond. "All stations, prepare for Protocol Zero initiation. Dr. Wells, bring the quantum manifold online. Lieutenant Chen, plot interference patterns for all Kraxan ships within range. Rodriguez, prepare to broadcast on their command frequencies using the algorithms we extracted from their diplomatic transmissions." The bridge crew moved with practiced precision, their months of drills paying off as they prepared to reveal humanity's true technological capabilities. The Phoenix's apparent simplicity had been crafted over decades, layer by layer, drawing upon humanity's long experience with deception and warfare. "Commander," Dr. Wells called out, excitement clear in her voice. "Quantum manifold is hot, ready to initiate the cascade on your command." Alina studied the tactical display one final time. The Kraxan ships had arranged themselves in a perfect attack formation, their crystalline hulls resonating in harmony as they prepared to fire. They had no idea that this very harmony, the source of their greatest strength, was about to become their critical weakness. "Send to all stations," Alina ordered, her voice carrying the weight of years of preparation. "Protocol Zero commences in 3 minutes. Remember your training. Remember what we're fighting for." She allowed herself a fierce grin. "Let's show the Galactic Empire why humanity's chaos has always been our greatest strength." The final seconds before Protocol Zero ticked away as Alina watched the Kraxan fleet's attack formation tighten. Their crystalline ships pulsed with building energy, preparing to deliver what they believed would be a devastating first strike. Behind her, Dr. Wells counted down in a steady voice. "Protocol Zero, initiating in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, executing." For a brief moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then the Phoenix's quantum core unleashed its true power. Waves of precisely calibrated energy burst forth from the ship in expanding rings, each one tuned to a specific frequency. To the human eye, it appeared as if reality itself rippled around them. To the Kraxan sensors, it would have looked like a massive system failure. "Energy wave expanding," Chen reported, her fingers dancing across her console. "Quantum resonance patterns matching exactly as predicted. Impact with first Kraxan vessel in 3 seconds." Alina leaned forward in her chair as the first wave struck the nearest enemy ship. The effect was instantaneous and spectacular. The crystalline hull, which had evolved over millions of years to channel and amplify energy, suddenly found itself trying to process quantum frequencies it was never designed to handle. Fracture lines appeared across its surface as the ship's own power systems turned against it. "Direct hit," Chen announced, unable to keep the excitement from her voice. "Enemy vessels' shield harmonics are completely disrupted. Their power grid is cascading." "Multiple Kraxan ships reporting critical system failures," Rodriguez added. "They're trying to coordinate a response, but our quantum interference is breaking down their communication protocols." Alina allowed herself a moment of satisfaction as she watched the mighty Kraxan fleet thrown into chaos. Humanity had spent years studying the crystalline nature of their ships, understanding how they channeled energy through their very structure. What the Kraxan saw as primitive scanning technology had actually been deep analysis of their fundamental weaknesses. "Flagship is attempting to rally their forces," Chen reported. "They're changing formation." "No. They're trying to, but their coordination is breaking down. The quantum interference is affecting their neural links." This was the true genius of Protocol Zero. The Kraxan's greatest strength, their crystalline technology that allowed for perfect coordination and power distribution, had become their greatest vulnerability. Each ship was now fighting alone, their crews suddenly cut off from the collective tactical awareness they relied upon. Incoming transmission from the flagship, Rodriguez called out. "They're demanding to know what we've done." The translation seems erratic. "No response needed," Elena replied. Prepare main weapons. Target their command and control nodes, the exact frequencies we calculated. Dr. Wells, increase quantum cascade by 20%. The Phoenix's conventional weapons might have seemed primitive to the Kraxan, but combined with the quantum disruption field, they became devastating. Each shot struck with surgical precision, exploiting stress points created by the resonance cascade. Ships that had weathered centuries of combat began breaking apart, their once perfect crystalline structures shattering under forces they were never designed to resist. Enemy fleet attempting to regroup, Chen reported. But their formation is scattered. Individual ships are trying to coordinate, but without their neural network. They're reverting to basic combat protocols. Elena finished. Just as we predicted. Tactical. Execute attack pattern Delta 7. Show them what human improvisation looks like. The Phoenix moved with impossible agility for a ship its size, diving through gaps in the Kraxan formation that their rigid tactical doctrine said couldn't exist. Each maneuver was a calculated risk, exploiting the confusion of enemies who had never needed to think independently in battle. Commander, Dr. Wells called out urgently. I'm detecting power spikes from multiple enemy vessels. They're attempting to overload their cores, trying to burn through our interference. Elena nodded grimly. The Kraxan were nothing if not adaptable, given enough time. Just as simulated. Execute Phase 2. New frequencies join the quantum cascade, precisely calculated to interact with the Kraxan's power surge. The enemy ship's attempt to overpower the interference instead created a feedback loop that amplified its effects. More crystalline hulls began to crack and splinter as their own desperate countermeasure backfired spectacularly. Flagship is breaking off, Chen announced. They're attempting to retreat to hyperspace coordinates. 3. No, 4 other ships are following. Let them go, Elena ordered. They'll carry the message back to their empire. Rodriguez, prepare a broadcast on all frequencies. It's time humanity introduced itself properly to the galaxy. As the remaining Kraxan ships fled or surrendered, Elena stood from her command chair. What they had achieved here would reshape the balance of power among the stars. Humanity had just proved that technological superiority meant nothing without the creativity and adaptability to use it properly. Message ready, Rodriguez reported. Elena took a deep breath. To all ships of the Kraxan Empire, you came to Earth believing you found another primitive species to absorb into your empire. What you actually found was humanity, a species that has spent its entire history preparing for this moment. We offer you one chance to withdraw and never return. Otherwise, you'll discover that today's demonstration was just the beginning of what humanity is capable of. 3 days after the battle in the Centauri system, Elena stood in the Phoenix's tactical room, studying the holographic display of known Kraxan space. Red markers indicated the massive fleet movements their long-range sensors had detected. The Empire was mobilizing for war on a scale not seen in centuries. They're abandoning their standard invasion protocols, Dr. Wells observed, manipulating the display to show projected fleet trajectories. Multiple battle groups converging from all sectors. They're treating this as an existential threat. As they should, Elena replied, zooming in on a particular cluster of signatures. The Kraxan built their entire empire on the assumption of technological supremacy. We didn't just defeat their ships, we shattered their foundation myth. The room's door slid open as Lieutenant Chen entered, her tablet displaying fresh intelligence. Update from Earth Command, Commander. Our quantum listening posts have intercepted communications from the Kraxan High Command. There, she paused, double-checking the translation. They're calling for something called the crystalline convergence. Dr. Wells' face paled. That's impossible. The energy requirements alone would. She quickly pulled up historical data on her console. The convergence has only been attempted twice in recorded history. It's their ultimate weapon, a synchronized linkage of their entire fleet's crystalline matrices. Elena studied the data with growing concern. The Kraxen were planning to turn their greatest vulnerability into an overwhelming advantage. By linking their ships into a single crystalline network, they could theoretically generate enough power to burn through any quantum interference. Time estimate. Elena asked, already calculating possibilities. Based on their fleet movements, they'll reach convergence range in approximately 72 hours, Chen reported. Earth Command is mobilizing everything we have. But the Phoenix is still our only ship with fully operational quantum technology, Elena finished. The rest of Earth's advanced fleet was still under construction, hidden in secret shipyards throughout the solar system. They had expected to have months before the Kraxen discovered their deception, not days. A subtle vibration ran through the ship as its quantum core adjusted to new power requirements. The Phoenix had taken damage during the first battle, damage they had barely begun to repair. Helena walked to the main viewport, watching as distant stars blurred past. They were running at maximum sustainable speed, trying to reach Earth before the Kraxen fleet. Dr. Wells, what happens if they achieve full convergence? The scientist hesitated before answering. Theoretically, they could create a crystalline energy matrix large enough to encompass an entire star system. Any ship caught within would have its quantum fields completely disrupted. We'd be helpless. Elena nodded slowly, pieces of a plan forming in her mind. But that much crystalline resonance would be incredibly unstable, wouldn't it? The slightest disruption in their harmonic frequencies could shatter the entire matrix. Dr. Wells finished, her eyes widening as she understood. But the power requirements to generate that kind of disruption would be. She stopped, quickly running calculations on her tablet. Commander, are you suggesting what I think you're suggesting? Lieutenant Chen, pull up the specifications for the Phoenix's quantum core, Elena ordered. Specifically, the emergency overload protocols we never intended to use. The tactical display shifted, showing complex schematics of the ship's heart. The quantum core had been designed with multiple failsafes, systems meant to prevent exactly the kind of overload Elena was contemplating. But those same failsafes could be reversed, turned into a weapon more powerful than anything the Kraxen could imagine. It would destroy the Phoenix, Dr. Wells said quietly, even if we could somehow survive the feedback. We won't need to, Elena interrupted. Not if we time it perfectly. She turned to face her officers, her expression determined. The Kraxen think they're about to show us their ultimate weapon. Instead, they're going to help us deliver ours. She quickly outlined her plan, watching as understanding dawned on her officers' faces. It was audacious, probably impossible, and exactly the kind of chaos that the Kraxen's rigid tactical doctrine would never expect. Send to Earth Command, she ordered. Request immediate implementation of Operation Shatterpoint. Then get me a secure channel to Admiral Chen. We're going to need every ship we can salvage, every scrap of crystalline technology we've captured. A fierce smile crossed her face. The Kraxen want to show us the power of unity. Let's show them what happens when humanity decides to work together. As her crew rushed to implement her orders, Elena returned to studying the tactical display. The Kraxen were coming with everything they had, believing that overwhelming force was the answer to human ingenuity. They were about to learn that humanity's greatest strength wasn't in their technology or their deception. It was their willingness to risk everything when they had nothing left to lose. The Sol system blazed with crystalline light as the largest Kraxen fleet ever assembled began their convergence. Thousands of ships linked their matrices, forming patterns of impossible complexity against the backdrop of space. At the heart of their formation, Elena watched from the Phoenix's bridge as the final pieces of humanity's counterattack fell into place. Crystalline convergence at 60% and rising, Dr. Wells reported, her voice tense. Their power output it's beyond anything we've ever recorded. The quantum interference isn't even slowing them down anymore. Elena nodded, watching as salvaged Kraxen ships from their earlier victory took up positions throughout the system. Each one had been modified according to her desperate plan, their crystalline cores reprogrammed to serve a new purpose. Earth's remaining defense fleet held position behind Mars, waiting for the signal that would begin humanity's final gambit. Message from Admiral Chen, Rodriguez announced. All ships report ready. They're awaiting your command. The Kraxan fleet's formation continued to tighten, their ships linking into an ever more complex geometric pattern. Energy arced between vessels, building toward a crescendo that would allow them to project power across the entire system. They were committing everything to this attack, determined to crush the species that had dared to challenge their dominion. Convergence at 80%, Dr. Wells called out. Commander, it's now or never. Elena took a deep breath, feeling the weight of Earth's future on her shoulders. Send to all ships. Operation Shatterpoint commences on my mark. Lock in targeting solutions and prepare for synchronized quantum pulse. The Phoenix's modified quantum core hummed with barely contained power. They had stripped out every safety system, pushed the experimental technology far beyond its designed limits. The ship herself was now essentially a giant quantum bomb, ready to detonate at precisely the right moment. Incoming transmission, Rodriguez reported. The Kraxan are broadcasting on all frequencies. On screen, Elena ordered, knowing what was coming. Fleet Commander Xarketh's image appeared, his crystalline form now pulsing with the combined power of the convergence. Humanity, his translated voice resonated with artificial harmonics. You have forced us to take unprecedented measures. Witness the true power of unity, the strength that comes from perfect order. Surrender now, and some of your species may be preserved to serve the Empire. Elena smiled, but there was no humor in it. You still don't understand us, Commander. Humanity doesn't surrender. We adapt. We improvise. And most importantly, she paused, checking the final readouts. We learn from our enemies. She cut the transmission before he could respond. All ships, execute Operation Shatterpoint on my mark. 3, 2, 1, mark. Across the solar system, dozens of salvaged Kraxan ships activated their modified crystalline cores. Each one had been carefully tuned to emit quantum frequencies that would interact with the convergence in very specific ways. Like a massive orchestra playing in perfect discord, they began to generate waves of competing resonance. Convergence field showing signs of instability, Dr. Wells reported excitedly. The harmonic disruption is working. Their power output is fluctuating. Now, Phoenix, Elena ordered. Maximum power to the quantum core. Push it beyond red line. The ship shuddered as its core began to overload, channeling more power than it was ever meant to contain. Warning alarms blared throughout the bridge as systems began to fail under the strain. Core temperature critical, Dr. Wells shouted over the noise. Containment fields failing, but the quantum pulse is building exactly as calculated. Elena gripped her command chair as the Phoenix began to shake itself apart. Broadcast to all Earth ships. Break and scatter. Get clear of the blast radius. She turned to her bridge crew. All hands, abandon ship. Get to the escape pods. Commander, Chen protested. We can't leave you. That's an order, Lieutenant. I need to manually maintain the quantum alignment until the last possible moment. Now go. As her crew reluctantly evacuated, Elena watched the tactical display through eyes blurred by the ship's violent shaking. The Kraxan convergence was beginning to fragment, its perfect geometric patterns distorting as competing frequencies tore at its structure. But it wasn't enough. They needed one final push. Core breach imminent, the computer announced dispassionately. Quantum containment failing in 10 seconds. Elena sent one final command through the ship's systems, disengaging all remaining safeties. The Phoenix's quantum core went into total overload, releasing a burst of energy that rippled across space-time itself. The wave struck the already destabilized convergence like a hammer hitting crystal. The effect was beyond even their most optimistic predictions. The Kraxan fleet's perfect formation shattered, their linked crystalline matrices amplifying and reflecting the quantum surge back through their entire network. Ships began to break apart as the very technology that made them superior became their downfall. From her escape pod, Alina watched as the Phoenix detonated in a final burst of quantum energy. The explosion cascaded through the remains of the Kraxan formation, turning their mighty armada into a field of crystalline debris. The few ships that survived immediately began retreating, their once perfect coordination replaced by panic and disarray. "This is Admiral Chen to all Earth forces," her commander's voice came through the pod's comm system. "The enemy fleet is in full retreat. I repeat, the Kraxan are retreating from the Sol system." There was a pause. Then, "Commander Santos, I don't know if you can hear this, but you did it. Earth is safe." Alina leaned back in her pod seat, watching as Earth ships began rescue operations. The Kraxan Empire had come expecting to find a primitive species ready to be conquered. Instead, they had discovered humanity's greatest truth, that real strength comes not from technological superiority or perfect order, but from the chaos of innovation, the power of adaptation, and the willingness to risk everything in defense of home. The war wasn't over. Alina knew the Kraxan would be back, eventually. But they would return as equals, not conquerors, and humanity would be ready, just as they had always been.